Hello, students. Today we're going to talk about one of the most important pillars of Indian democracy, the judiciary. You've probably heard about courts, judges, and lawyers. But what do they actually do? In this lesson, based on your Class 8 NCERT textbook, we're going to explore what the judiciary is, why it's so important, and how it works to protect your rights. Think of the government as a team with three main players. First, you have the legislature. That's the parliament, which makes the laws. Second, you have the executive. That's the president, prime minister, police, and government officials who carry out the laws. And third, you have the judiciary. This is the court system, and its main job is to interpret the laws and act as the umpire of the whole system, making sure everyone plays by the rules written in the Constitution. So what does this umpire actually do? The judiciary has three main roles. The first is dispute resolution, solving conflicts. The second is judicial review, which is a big-sounding term for making sure all laws follow the Constitution. And the third is upholding the law and enforcing your fundamental rights, which we'll look at in a second. These three jobs are the foundation of our legal system. Let's talk about dispute resolution. Life is full of disagreements. What happens when your landlord tries to kick you out unfairly? Or what if two states, like Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, are in a dispute over who gets to use the water from a river? The courts are the mechanism we use to solve these conflicts peacefully. They listen to both sides and make a decision based on the law, whether the fight is between two people, a person, and the government, or even two different state governments. The second role, judicial review, is like the judiciary's superpower. The Constitution is the basic structure of our country, and no one is allowed to violate it. If the Parliament passes a new law and the judiciary thinks this new law goes against a fundamental right or any part of the Constitution, it has the power to strike it down. This means the law is canceled and can no longer be enforced. This power ensures that the government can't just make any law it wants. This is the one that's most important to you as a citizen. In your civics book, you learned about fundamental rights, like the right to equality or the right to life, which includes the right to health and a clean environment. If you or any citizen feel that your rights are being violated, for example, if you are denied entry to a place because of your religion, you have the right to go directly to a high court or the Supreme Court for justice. Now, none of this would work if the judiciary was afraid of the government. This is why the most important feature of our judiciary is that it is independent. Independent means it is not controlled by the other two branches, the legislature, politicians, or the executive, police, government. A judge's job is to make a decision based only on the law and the evidence, not based on which politician is more powerful or what the public opinion is. The Constitution has special rules to protect this independence. The main rule is the separation of powers, which acts like a wall between the branches. For example, politicians have very little say in who becomes a judge, and once a judge is appointed, it is extremely difficult to remove them from their job. This job security means a judge doesn't have to worry about being fired if they make a decision that is legally correct but might be unpopular with the government. So what does the system look like? India has an integrated judicial system, which is a fancy way of saying it's a pyramid. At the very top, you have the Supreme Court. In the middle, you have the high courts. And at the bottom, where most cases start, you have the subordinate or district courts. Integrated means that the decisions made by the higher courts, like the Supreme Court, are binding, meaning they must be followed by all the lower courts. Let's start at the bottom of the pyramid. The subordinate or district courts are the ones you'd find in your town or district. This is what most people mean when they say they are going to court. They are called by different names, like the district judge's court or the magistrate's court. For the vast majority of people, This is the first and only court they will ever interact with. One step up are the high courts. Each state in India has a high court, which is the highest court in that state. For example, the High Court of Odisha is in Cuttack, and the High Court of Maharashtra is in Mumbai, which is called the Bombay High Court. These courts handle more serious cases and also hear appeals from the lower district courts. At the very top of the pyramid is the Supreme Court of India. This is the apex court, the highest court in the entire country, and it's located in New Delhi. It is led by the Chief Justice of India, or CJI. Any decision made by the Supreme Court is the final word. It is binding on all other courts, from the high courts in the states down to the smallest local court. There is no appeal after the Supreme Court. This pyramid structure allows for something called the appellate system. To appeal means to ask a higher authority to review a decision. Let's say you're in a dispute, and the district court makes a decision you think is legally wrong. You can appeal to the high court. The high court will then look at the case and decide if the lower court's judgment was correct. If you still think the high court made a mistake, you can try to appeal one last time to the Supreme Court. Now, the law isn't just one big thing. It's divided into two main branches that handle very different types of problems. Think of it like a hospital that has an emergency room for accidents and a separate clinic for checkups. The legal system has criminal law for crimes and civil law for private disputes. Criminal law deals with actions that are defined as crimes against the entire society, things like theft, assault, harassment, or murder. When a crime is committed, it's not seen as just a wrong against the victim. It's a wrong against the public or the state. That's why in a criminal case, the fight is between the state, represented by the public prosecutor, and the person who is accused of the crime. The process for a criminal case is very specific. It almost always begins with someone filing an FIR, or First Information Report, with the police. The police then have a legal duty to investigate the crime, gather evidence, talk to witnesses. After their investigation, if they think a crime was committed, they file a case in court. If the accused person is found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, the punishment is serious, like a fine or being sent to jail. Civil law, on the other hand, deals with disputes between individuals or groups over their rights. This isn't about crime, it's about harm or a dispute. The most common examples are disagreements over property, like a land dispute between neighbors, or a tenant not paying rent. Other examples include divorce cases or a company breaking a contract. Here, the case is between the plaintiff, the person who was harmed, and the defendant, the person accused of causing the harm. The civil process is totally different. There are no police and no FIRs. The person who feels wronged, the plaintiff, files a petition directly in court. The court then hears both sides. The goal isn't to punish anyone or send them to jail. The goal is to find a remedy. Usually, this means the court orders the defendant to pay money, compensation, to the plaintiff for the harm they caused, or orders them to do a specific action, like return the property. So, the Constitution says everyone has the right to justice. But does everyone really have access to the courts? In theory, yes, but in reality, it's very difficult. Think about it. You have to hire a lawyer, which costs a lot of money. You have to pay court fees. You have to submit a lot of complicated paperwork. And worst of all, cases can take years to be decided. For a poor person, taking time off work and paying for a lawyer is often impossible. To fix this exact problem, the Supreme Court in the 1980s introduced a revolutionary idea called public interest litigation, or PIL. This is a legal tool that allows any citizen or organization to file a case in court, not for their own personal gain, but for the public interest. You don't have to be the victim. If you see a factory polluting a river or a group of bonded laborers being exploited, you can file a PIL on their behalf. This has been a game changer for making justice accessible to the poorest and most marginalized people in India.